even before our sense of sight, it's like our sense of smell, like you have to go like all your senses, you have to engage them all. And so I think more than anything, I would tell people, be sensational. Sometimes when you have ideas or you a forward thinker, and people say, oh, you've been here before. I mean, you might say things that are controversial or people don't understand yet. You still have to make your contributions and do what you need to do for your destiny, because it's not just for here, it's for the present, it's for the future.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faranbi, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Dr. Chinyere Knight. She is a biology professor at Tuskegee University in Alabama. She labors in the spirit of Dr. George Washington Carver and is inspired by teaching, research, and activism for humanity, respecting nature and all creatures that dwell within. So that's just a little bit about you, Dr. Knight. How about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Thank you for inviting me. Yes, I'm Chinyere, and I'm here at Tuskegee. And so, in terms of, you introduced me like I would introduce, myself. Yeah, like I would introduce myself. I'm just happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, yeah. So I guess I did it for you. I mean, I did too good of a job. Well, I would say, kind of walk me through how you got to where you are. Because I know you were always at Tuskegee. I know you're in biology now. Was that something you studied in undergrad? Well, just kind of walk me through your story from getting into STEM
like
to
my
where you
STEM
are now.
story.
Yeah.
My STEM story. So I was always one of those children, young people who was always driven for science and research, like without knowing it. And even when I was 14, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And Detroit, well, you said you were in manufacturing, so Michigan is like manufacturing capital #1 in the country. And so because of that, and because of the big three, Ford Motor Company, GM, and Chrysler, we always had a lot of programs for young people in STEM and robotics and engineering. And a lot of them were free. Like we had this DAPSET program, Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program. And I just was able to take advantage of a lot of those programs growing up as a youth, like 10, 11, 12, elementary. And so by the time I got to high school, and they had what would be called like RIUs, but for high school students. So even in
What is an RI? Did you say RIU?
Oh, research, like research experience for undergraduates. So
REU. Okay. Yes.
REU. I might have said but REU. So I took part in REUs, but in high school. So my sophomore year, they had this collaboration with Wayne State University, and so I started doing research in the chemistry and biochemistry department at the University of Detroit Mercy. And so from there, I just, like, at that young age, I had just already convinced myself I was a scientist. I would go home and be like, I'm finding the cure for cancer, So I was just always immersed in it at a very early age. And like being in the environmental clubs. I went to a high school where we had majors already in high school. It was a Detroit public high school, but it was, very
in high school you had majors?
Yeah, we had majors in high school. I was a science and arts major in high school. And so in high school, we had scientific research. We had like where you could do an internship. I did an internship at Henry Ford Hospital during the day, and then I took classes. And so it really immersed you in your career or interest early on, so I had
Wow.
training in the clinic and in training in research before I even got to undergraduate. And of course, it's like people, you say, yeah, I want to be a doctor, but I really didn't know. Like, I did work in the lab. So in high school, I worked in the core stat lab in the hospital. And that's where, well, I told you we had this internship. So I was first I went to the clinics. Like, I was in the cardiology and endocrinology and metabolism. But I had this friend, Ravi, and he was in the lab, and I feel like
Okay.
he got to do so much fun stuff. Like, you really can't do that much in the clinic as a high school student. Like, we just did a lot of paperwork and setting up the rooms, But he would come back, he like, yeah, I'm looking at cells, like I'm making slides, doing smears. So I was like, I want to be in the lab, like he sounds like he's doing stuff that's fun, that's cool, So that next semester or whatever, I made sure that I was in the lab. And then from there, I started working in the lab. Like, I had a job in the summertime, and it was like a midnight shift, like a graveyard shift. But even at that point, I just really felt like this is what a doctor has to do, like they have to know how to work and like work in the lab at night, and I would have to like prepare or do the CD4 counts for the blood cultures for HIV, so I just really felt like, say, at a young age, I just really felt like I'm doing for real science. I'm like, for real, like helping out and solving problems. I volunteered in they had just built the Veterans Hospital. Like, we had a new Veterans Hospital. So I started volunteering there in the pharmacy. So I just was always really busy. Like, even in high school, I was busy working in the hospitals, working in the clinics, volunteering, doing research. So by the time I got to college, I just already felt like I'm here to find a cure. Like, like I'm going to find a cure.
It's like, I'm ready for me.
And that's how I just remember introducing, like, even when I met my mentor for undergraduate research, I had already just approached him like it was going to be a collaboration. Like, okay, plants, I know chemistry. So we going to work together and we got to find a cure.
Wow.
And that was like,
this is what your PI, you're saying.
Yeah, like freshman year at Howard. I attended Howard University. So, just even at that young age, I was just already, felt like, yeah, I'm here to serious business. Like, I'm here to be able to find a cure.
Wow.
And then, so I think, like you say, when you able to plant a seed early, like you able to just really nurture your dream early. And a lot of these things were free. I mean, I didn't
really.
I mean, yeah, like, the internships and things like that through school, those were school programs or the robotics program. So a lot of these things, you didn't have to be like rich or have your parents send you to some private, science camp or whatever. Like, and that's what I'm realizing now and appreciating, like, just being in Detroit. We had so many opportunities, like trades and training and, things that if you really wanted to be overdeveloped, you could be, like you could just
that's good.
Always, and even in the arts, like even in the performing arts. So I did arts too and dance and, all those things. So I just was, now that I'm here more in a rural area where it's not that many opportunities and stuff, I do have that gratitude that, growing up, the high school I went to is so many like universities and community colleges and trade schools. Like, we had this thing called Focus Hope that was actually, for young people, like you could start getting training in engineering at 13, like they just had a lot of programs.
Training in engineering before high school?
Even aeronautics. Like, now I got this thing now where I'm learning to fly. I'm becoming a pilot because I'm at Tuskegee. Why not, right? So, and even growing up, like they had aviation school, like student, you could just really you could do mechanics, you could do aviation. Like, you didn't even have to go the college route, so it was a lot of opportunities, even if you weren't going the college route to, get a trade or to train yourself. And yeah, I'm realizing that now that was just a real, like that was a privilege. And it was still inner city. I mean, it was inner city, but they had the programs like they did. They had a lot of, programs, and those companies, they invested a lot because they wanted to try to train and recruit the students. So I actually got my undergraduate. In undergraduate, I got a scholarship. In my scholarship, I actually was recruited by a mentor from Ford Motor Company. So they did have a
Oh
lot of
wow.
programs where they, excellent students from the high school, whatever, they wanted to invest because they wanted you to come back and work for, be engineer. Like the goal was for me to be an engineer at GM or Ford or something like that, so
Oh
they'll send
okay.
you and invest in you, and then you come back
Yeah.
and then, you be an engineer for them.
Yeah. They're planting
Yeah.
to see so you come back, trying to build that
Yeah, yeah,
pipeline.
yeah. So I think but that allowed you to really just nurture your dream. Like as a young person, you could just really, I mean, I remember I took part of like civil engineering. They had this Lawrence Tech, and I don't know if you know. I mean, we all know who Ben Carson is now, but Ben Carson
Yeah.
back in the day, he was like my number one inspiration. I watched the
Oh
movie,
yeah,
I
the
read the book, Kiss
medicine.
the
Yeah.
Hands. He was from Detroit, so and they
Hmm.
had like a Ben Carson program, like Ben Carson
Hmm.
training program, where you had to be like super excellent. So we
Hmm.
had all these programs that just really prepared you and exposed you and
Hmm.
allowed you to develop and know about those different career paths, like know about engineering and the different types of engineering. Like, yeah, you got the civil
Hmm.
engineering and mechanical engineering. Like, you don't usually learn that till you get to college, but it's like
Yeah. No, you don't.
I had training in that when I was in high school. So I think, like I say, early on, it was just like, and that allowed me to really just have that love for science and be sheltered, I guess. Like now I realize it, like that must allow me to have a lot of sheltering, because it was never I never had time for like you don't belong, or this like sense of belonging that people talk about, or imposter syndrome stuff. Like that never I never had a time to develop that, because I was in it, and I was in it so young, and I saw myself like my mentors were black, my professor, my
Mm.
teachers. I was in Detroit, so it's like the doctors
Yeah.
and stuff. All the doctors I went to as a kid, they were black. My dentist, my optometrist, my
Hmm.
pediatrician, like they were all black doctors. And I know my mother was selective about that, like she made sure that but that was important. So I always saw black professionals and interacted with um black scientists and stuff like that, to where it never was this thing like you don't belong in science, or girls can't do science. And that was never, I never got that.
Yeah, I think that's really important what you highlighted,
Yeah.
because a lot of times, like for people who are underrepresented in STEM, whether like for us who are Black or Hispanic or other people who are underrepresented, you don't often see those people, so you can't see yourself in that position. But what you were saying
Hmm.
is that growing up, a lot of people around you, a lot of these leaders in STEM, whether it's on a medical side or on the engineering side, they were Black people. And so
Yeah.
you didn't have this feeling of not belonging, because you're like, oh, this person looks like me, like I
Yeah.
know I can do this. And I'm still cracking up at what you were saying when you came into college, talking with your principal
Yeah, like I
investigator,
just
talking
really
about being
approached him like, okay, look, I know we gotta, like, you got this background, I got my back. And even at Howard, so the chair at that time was named Dr. Jesse Nicholson. And even the way that he like presented, like he always made like you could either be, the doctor that prescribed medicine, or the doctor that make the medicine, you know.
mm,
And I even think at that point, like even knowing that difference early in the game, like
mm,
because yeah, we had the pre-med track people too, but it's like, no, you come here, you want to be a chemist, you're going to design the medicine, you make the medicine, you find the cure. And so then I was able to even take that too, like, and Percy Julian, it was like the chemistry department at Howard was like designed by Dr. Percy Julian. And so it's like, yeah, you were just immersed in this thing, like you just knew you could. And I mean, you definitely had to go through the ringer. Like it was difficult, it was tough, but it was never like you don't belong or you can't do. Like it was too many references, too many examples of like scientists who did, and we were in buildings like yeah, that Howard, all of that was just magnified,
Oh,
yeah, it was just magnified. Yeah, it was magnified. And I was there during the Obama administration. It's just like, hey, yeah, in my mind, I just felt like I could do whatever I want to do. Yeah, I could do whatever I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned like your experiences in high school in Detroit and then going to Howard. I know right now you're at Tuskegee, so a lot of Black influence. Was there a moment was there any culture shock? Because I didn't know, did you have any like throughout your like education where you had to work with institutions that were PWIs? Was it mainly been the HBCU route?
Yeah, no. In high school, I trained at University of Detroit Mercy. That's a PWI. Wayne State
Okay.
is a PWI.
Yeah.
It's no HBCUs in Michigan. So you get the HBCUs like when you go to the South, and I was in like the NAACP Youth Council, and we thought like that was the big thing. Like I always wanted to go to an HBCU too. Maybe it was like a different world than like school days, but it's like that was just my goal. Like my counselor made me apply to Michigan schools because it's like you had to have an in-state application, and they did. They gave you a full ride, but I was just already set. Like, no, I'm going to an HBCU because I had went to like college tours, and it's like you get on the bus, and you drive down south, and you go to all the different HBCUs, and even that like already promoted me to where I was like, no, I'm going to an HBCU. Like it's already, and I had applied I was actually going to Xavier first in New Orleans. I had accepted it and everything, but Howard had a Michigan club. They had a Michigan club.
Wait, what is a Michigan club? What does that mean?
Like, at colleges, how they have different clubs for states. Like they'd be like New York. So all the people from New York, I have like a New York club, and all the people from whatever.
I'm not familiar with like, no.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it was a Michigan club at Howard, and so the Michigan club would sponsor. They would have students. They would get high school students, and then the high school students would come there and spend like a weekend. Like no, it was like winter break, like 4 days. And you got to stay in the dorm and be on the campus and, feel like you in college.
Yeah,
so I went on the Michigan club, like college tour thing to Howard. And once I did that, I was like, no, I'm changing my mind. I was like, I'm going to Howard, because I got to like stay in the dorm and feel like a college student and like see DC and go around DC and get on the trains. And I was like, nah, I like it here. I'm coming here,
Yeah.
So it was, I guess I'm living my dream, what I wanted, I mean, it's been tough. Like, it has been tough, but this is what I always like wanted to do, like I fell in love with HBCUs and I fell in love with science. And I really felt like, and once I met my professors at HBCUs and I found out a lot of them came from the South or went to HBCUs in the South. That's where they had their training. And so I'm like, oh yeah, this must be where the melted, this is where you really get, where they really make diamonds. Like you got to come down here. And the hardship is real. Like I see why you got to be made diamond. Like it's like, if you make it out of here, you are diamond. You are diamond. Yeah, so I would say that biggest challenge, like the culture shock, was coming from the North to the South. I didn't realize it was out of the country. Like I didn't realize when they start calling me a Yankee, I was just confused. Like
Oh,
I was like, what is like Yankee? Who you still use that term? So
yeah.
I think that is still it's still something that is like I have to adapt to, just realizing that it's a thing. Like uh it's a different culture. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
It is like, and I didn't know that so much, but it is like the northern culture, southern culture, or even rural versus
Mm-hmm.
city ecology. Like I say, it's like that urban ecology versus the rural
Mm.
ecology. Um, yeah, so I am still adapting. Um, and it's a challenge, but I think that challenge kind of keep you not it make you not get closed minded. It make
Yeah.
you because even though you're like, oh no, I'm around my people, like but it's like every diversity, like it's
Mm-hmm.
still different backgrounds, different stories, different experiences, and so even that. So I'm like, oh yeah, we went. I'm HBCU trained, or I'm a African American female, but even still, I have to learn. I have to learn the language. The culture is different here than it is in DC, than it is in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
I even, I did a study abroad stuff out the country, so it's.
Where did you study
So
abroad?
I studied abroad in Spain, and then I took a year, and I was in Cuba. So I went to Cuba,
Oh,
for a
wow.
year, and so all of these things, uh, and I tell my students, so I try to not. I know some mentors because I always felt like I had to push back with my mentors because they like you going off the curriculum, like you going off the path, like while you doing your own thing. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I know I did. Like now, when I look back on it, I'm like, whoa, I did everything like I wanted to do. Like, and I just, so that's what I encourage the students. Like, really, if you want to do all of those things, like when you in college, like explore, um, double major, change your major, travel abroad, do all of those things because it really do help you confirm what you want to do. Like, this is really where I'm at, and this is what I want to do. A lot of times people don't
Yeah.
know because they've never tried anything different. They just stuck to that one thing and just it was going good, so they don't want to take the risk. But I'm like, if it's any time to take the risk, it's when you young and have that flexibility.
Yeah, I think what you said with the flexibility and just trying different things, it's so important because I know as a student and even like talking with students now, there's this whole idea of being afraid of failing or afraid of not liking something, and oftentimes they don't want to try something because like, wait, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah, and that's what you have to get comfortable with. Like,
Yeah.
especially now is like profess like I think that's what you have, like you have to really learn how to be rejected and fail. And I think a lot of
Hmm.
excellent students, like those A students, it's hard for them. Like it's hard for the A students because they end up, they've always been told yes, or that
Hmm.
they're excellent and that they're gonna do a good
Hmm.
job. And so when they get to that point where they actually challenged, or now you're not getting everything right, it
Hmm.
can kind of crush them, or make you feel
Yeah,
like you
it
can't
can.
do nothing or you're not gonna be good at it. But
Hmm.
you have to learn how to absorb that. Like it's almost like you want to be a professional, like you want to be a heavyweight, but you're scared to be knocked out. So it's like you gotta know
Yeah, you
that when
got to
you
take
training
both
to
of
be a
it. Yeah.
heavyweight, it's like you eventually gonna get knocked out. You know what I mean? Even when you the best, like Muhammad
Hmm.
Ali, like even
Hmm.
Muhammad Ali is going to get knocked out. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes students fear that because even when they are excellent and they doing good, they think they can just stay that way or peak. Like, and you gotta know that you gotta fall and get back up. Like that persistence is what's gonna keep you through, because this journey is not one in which you're gonna always be in the front. You're gonna start, and you're gonna have to develop yourself, and you're gonna have to realize old ways of doing things, or you're gonna have to modify, you're gonna have to pivot, you're gonna have to modify, you're gonna have to learn learn how to be a student again, even when, so now, like you say, even me, I have to learn how to be a student still. Like, even though I'm in the front of the class, I'm a professor, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a student to my mentors. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you always have to learn how to wear these different hats and understand that you do have room to grow and you're not perfect and you will fail, but that doesn't mean you are a failure, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to touch on that, like this whole idea of like the failing and being a failure, because it is so easy to get caught up in rejection and failure as something that you are, but it's important that you separate like yourself from the failure. This is something that happened to me. It's not something I am, because the only way you really fail is when you stop trying, because there's no one that is successful that hasn't failed. And if you've never
Yeah.
failed, that means you're not trying anything new. You're just doing the same thing over and over again, and that's just boring.
Right. And you haven't pushed yourself, like, you don't even know your own capacity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like until you like, and that's the thing, like when you in school and you training, you will learn your capacity. It's just like if
Mm-hmm.
you lifting weights and stuff, like you gonna lift, it's gonna get to a point where you gonna like
Mm-hmm.
you gonna know that that's your capacity, that's your limit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you keep training, then you're gonna be able to lift more and you're gonna be able to do more reps. But it's like that first day you go in there, your personal trainer gonna let you know where your limit is, and you have to be humble enough to accept that. Like, if you try to overexert or strain yourself, you will hurt yourself or you will pull a muscle, you know. So it's the same thing like in academics. Like, you have to learn how to know how to evaluate yourself and know how much you can lift and how many reps you can do. But that don't mean that that's the end of you. You just have to develop more. You know, you can develop more and lift more weight or have more whatever brain capacity, read more, study more. But it's just that point of knowing that you are a developing human being, and whenever you do peak, like you say, whenever you do peak, that's when you start getting old. You know, like say, whenever you feel like, I mean, oh, I know all that, I don't need to, like, that's when you start getting old.
Yeah. And there's always stuff to learn. So like and it can, I don't know, depending on how you look at it, it can be daunting to feel like there's always gonna be something that you don't know. Or I look at it as it's exciting because there's always more to learn. There's always something more to do.
Yeah, and it's like a privilege to be a dreamer, you know, to be curious, like. And you know, even that for women, like it's a lot of women, you hear these stories where, and they could be totally brilliant, but you're not allowed to dream. You know, like you're not, like, you just
Hmm.
told you had these certain roles and these certain duties, so you know you don't get time to dream. You don't get time to be curious. Like, you just kind of told you had this role or this duty. So you know, it is a privilege to be able to be in a career where your job is to dream and to teach other people how to dream and be creative. Like, and I think that is really essentially, I've always just had a love of learning. Now we
Hmm.
understand that academics so I get on my students with on this all the time. You know, they come to me with their cell phones, and now they can see the grade book in the phone. You know, so they step to me with the cell phone, like, my grade, you know, I don't see my grade, or these points not in here. And so, and just trying to tell, I tell them same thing. I say, turn your notifications off. Don't come. I'm not AI. Don't come to me with no cell phone. You know, like, are you here for a transaction or are you here for education? And so
Hmm.
it's hard for us to separate, because a lot of things we do in our life do cost. Like you say, it's like it costs money, cash money,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
feel it, and your parents feel it, and you took out loans. And so you trying to calculate, like, look, I don't have another $5,000 to take this class. Now I need 10 more
Hmm.
points to squeeze. But it's like education is like, you have to allow yourself to separate from the transaction of education.
Hmm.
You know, so it is a part, like you say, when we feel it, like you feel it every time you you know, you feel the transaction of education. But even that relationship that you have with your professors, and the experience that you have is priceless, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but I think a lot of people aren't able to experience that because they so caught up in the transaction of the relationship or the institution, or you know, so it's like everything is a transaction. And sometimes that infiltrate a lot of aspects of our life, you know, even relationship, family, all that. Like, is this a relationship or is this a transaction, you know? And I think that a lot of the young people being online, it make them more feel like it's a transaction, you know. So just trying to get back to that old, I can say I'm old school in a lot, because a lot of my mentors were older. You know, I really had like those mentors from the 50s and stuff. So I had that real lot of old school training, like in the stacks, you know, sitting in office hours, like. And so I realized that it slow you down, like it slow you down from a lot of thinking that you have to do things online, like, oh, you got to create this profile or be a part of this network and do all of this stuff online. But they forget that it's a relationship and you have to be present more than anything. Like, you have to be in that library. You do. Like, you have to be in the environment of the library. You have to be in the ecosystem of the lab. You have to be around other young people where y'all sharpen each other, you know, like, and you can't, certain things you can't do online. You know, like, it's like you really have to be, you have to get in the deep end. You got to get in that water, you know. And I think that a lot of students, they think they can skip over that now. You know, they think they can skip over like getting in the water, and they can simulate water, and like they can learn how to swim by simulated water. And it's like, no, you really can't. Like, you have to get in the water. You got to get in the water. And a lot of people fear swimming. They fear water over their head, but that's the only way you're going to learn how to swim, is to get in the water. Yeah.
I think that's a really key thing that you mentioned as for how this generation is, as far as a lot of things have become transactional. And I would say it's not completely their fault. Technology has advanced tremendously. I know you were talking about AI, and even one funny example I have is with tipping. So I saw a video the other day about someone was letting someone on the elevator. They asked them what floor they wanted. They hit the floor, and then they pulled their phone out and said, like, this is the tip amount, like 5, 10, 15 custom amount for the tip, just for holding the door open and getting getting into the floor. So life really
Yeah.
truly has become more transactional. And I know COVID and us being virtual definitely did not help with that, because we didn't see
Mm-hmm.
each other. And so, like, firsthand, like, I had my little sister started college right before COVID hit, and then it hit in her spring semester, and then majority of her college career and internships were all in COVID, and a lot of it was virtual. So it is, and it remains to be seen, like, how this is going to affect all of our development. 'Cause I think it's different from when you're in college versus if this happened to you before college or even after college.
Yeah, no, and I could tell the difference. Like I say,
Yeah,
post COVID, like, so I've been through it all. Like you say, I've been through
yeah,
online, hybrid. Now we back in the
hmm
classroom. And even trying, it's like, yeah, it's a lot. It might take like 5 more years, I think. Like, really 5 more years before we can get back to normalcy.
hmm
Because it was a disruption in those really
yeah,
formative years, the
yeah,
formative years of their development.
yeah,
And so, and we think that, and like you say, I was just saying this, like, it's no way to teach emotional intelligence. You know, like, emotional, you learn that from experiences. You could watch as many YouTube videos as you want, even like reading book, but it's like the emotional intelligence, you have to interact with people. You gotta
yeah,
learn like conflict resolution. You gotta know what you're gonna do if somebody
hmm
accidentally step on your shoe. You know, like, you have to have somebody step on your shoe. You have to have
hmm
somebody bump shoulders with you, like in the store, like, and know that it don't mean nothing. Like, you gotta, you know, ride a bike and fall and scrape your knee. it's no way to simulate your like the way to respond emotionally when you just gotta go outside. You know, there's
Yeah.
no way. And
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at now. So we have intelligence, like it's no, but the emotional intelligence. You know, the being able to like the socialize, like being able to interact with other people, other youth, your other peers. And even like, you know, when I was in college, we had study groups. Like I wouldn't survive physics. I wouldn't have survived these hard classes
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have engineering friends. Like, you know, it's like you better have an engineering friend. Like, how they know what you think you gonna do? You think you really just gonna sit and get through this by yourself? You know, like you and so and even that, like just knowing how to just lean over your shoulder and be like, hey, did you hear what the professor said? They don't know how to do that. They so uncomfortable with each other in the
Mm-hmm.
space, you know. So just get into where they back comfortable, like relying on each other. Like your classmate is your number one defense. Like
Oh yeah.
that's your
Yeah.
number one. Like it's like you don't have to be their best friend. I'm telling you, like
No.
y'all, but y'all in it together. Like y'all
Yeah.
in it
Mm-hmm.
together. So that's your before YouTube, like you say, before YouTube or before you subscribe to anybody's page or anything. Your number one help in this class is the person sitting next to you. But
Yeah.
it's hard for them. They don't get that part. And but I think just with time, like you say, with time and with more interaction, they're gonna realize that human capital is number one. Human
Oh yeah.
capital, like human capital, like you know, before everything else, devices and stuff, like human capital is essential.
Yeah, human capital, emotional intelligence. Yeah, emotional
Yeah,
intelligence
like
is so critical. And I think the important thing to know, like for anyone listening or watching, is that emotional intelligence is not something that's set. It can be developed, but you just have to take the time to develop it, seek out people. You also have to practice. It's not something you can just read about. You have to put it into
yeah, that's what I'm like.
practice.
It's nothing that you can like watch people talk about. Like it's like you just have to get in the water. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's some things that, and now we think we could be so prepared. You know, like even before we going out, it's like, oh, so did you do the reservation? Did you online? You can online. You can order your stuff pre-online. Like we think we could control everything. You know, we could control. We could even see the video. Like, oh, now we gonna take a vacation. It's like, oh, did you see the panoramic view of all the every
Hmm.
space? And so we feel like we can, like nothing is gonna be a surprise. Like we can see everything before, and so we try to feel like, but it's some things, and I even think about like spontaneity. Like it's some things, like even in your career, like it's some people that you just met on the random at the bus
Hmm.
stop. You know, like
Hmm.
it's so many people just being in DC that I just encountered, or in Georgia Avenue, you know, like, and it wasn't a plan. It wasn't like we decided to link up at Starbucks, or they text me, or they was in the group me, or it's none of that. It's like sometimes you really have to allow yourself to be unplanned and to be um have spontaneous encounters that don't is not based on the transaction, or like a part of what you feel like is your inclusive exclusive group. You know, like you have to allow yourself to rub shoulders with people that you would have never even thought of. You know, and you don't have that until you go outside, because your algorithms are already determined for you on the computer. You know, it's like you say, even your thoughts, your ideas is already an algorithm. And so you're not able to even get out the algorithm on the computer. You're not able to get out your own perspective sometimes. Like you have to go outside to do it.
Yeah.
You have
The
to go
title of this episode might just be "You Have to Go
go
Outside."
outside.
Go outside. And yeah,
Yeah.
we could go we could go on and on, but we're almost out of time. But I want to make sure that that went really fast. If there's anything about you or this whole idea of emotional intelligence going outside that you want to talk about before we wrap things up.
Um I just think that is where you have. Okay, I'm gonna throw a little biology in this, just
Okay.
because, just because. So, even like our immunity, okay. So our immunity, we have to update our storage. The way we update our storage for our immunity is we have to expose ourselves to antigens. Now,
Hmm.
antigens could be pathogens. They can get you sick. Like you say, you could go outside and you could encounter something and it can make you have allergies. You could start reacting. You can even catch a cold, you know.
Hmm.
But you have to know that if you never ever exposed yourself to any antigens or any outside stuff, you would never have the memory to respond or to defend yourself. So
Hmm.
these encounters, even in terms of our healthcare and our well-being, nothing is isolated.
Hmm.
Even if you in your room and you just sanitized your hands and you spray Lysol all around you, um, we have our communication. Like you say, we plugged into each other. We're connected to each other.
Hmm.
And yes, even this is a connection. Like you say, us on this video, we connecting and stuff.
Yeah.
But even before our sense of sight, it's like our sense of smell, like you have to go like
Hmm.
all your senses, you have to engage them all. And so I
Hmm.
think more than anything, I would tell people be sensational. It's even for your science, like even for your observation. It's not just your eyes, it's not just what you observe, it's not just optics, it's what you hear, it's
Hmm.
what you smell, it's what you
Hmm.
feel. And I feel like we've been overloaded with our visual senses,
Yes.
our visual.
Yes.
We've been overloaded to what you see, and we've been judging everything by what we see. We've
Hmm.
been judging everything and everybody by based on what we see in like too many clips. And
Yes.
so it's like and I'm not saying don't be sensational. I'm saying be sensational, but allow those other senses and even your sixth sense, like your intuition or your faith. It's like
Hmm.
you have to even upgrade that storage, so it's like even that, how do you upgrade your sixth sense? How do you upgrade your instinct or your faith? And that's something you can't see, you can't like read in a book or watch on YouTube, but those are the senses that you still need in order to be able to not just survive in this world, but be successful or even learn how to bounce back if you get knocked down. You have to learn how to be sensational and tap into all of those things and understand that you get it from individuals first. You get it from your friends, you get it from family, your loved ones, and that's where you get that's how you regroup, or that's how you um uh just staying connected to individuals and staying and knowing that everybody is not your friend and they will not like you, and that's totally fine.
Hmm.
It's totally fine um to be. And even those people, like you say, those people that have the great ideas, that's like on the cusp of like innovations, you always watch their life story and like you be like, dang, they, like people. Sometimes when you have ideas or you a forward thinker, and people say, "Oh, you've been here before." I mean, you might say things that are controversial or people don't understand yet. They just, like Octavia Butler, like she was just before her time. They just didn't get it. So you got to understand that a lot of people just won't get it. They won't get it until maybe 20 or 30 years after you out of this world. So you still have to make your contributions and do what you need to do for your destiny, because it's not just for here, it's for the present, it's for the future. And so always tapping into your purpose and realigning yourself and regrouping and understanding that it's not going to always feel good. Like it will be painful sometimes, but that we built for that. Like we built for scars, like we built for wounds, like we built our body, and our spirit is built to take hits. So you can't be scared to take a hit.
Yeah. You. Yeah, that's a good word right there. You can't be scared to take a hit. But no,
Yes.
I really love that thought and what you shared about your story, really being immersed in STEM, getting to go into different HBCUs, going from Harvard to Tuskegee, going from being a Yankee to the South, and just
Yeah.
learning what it means to interact with different people and to go outside, like you
Yeah.
mentioned.
And I mean, I have had the antagonism and the bullying, but I don't let that, like, that's not, that's, it don't rule. Like, it don't, it's like when you, like, all the blessings, like when you count all your blessings, you're not, then whatever somebody stepped on your toe, you're not worried about that. It's like, you're
Yeah,
not worried about no, but they stepped on your toe, but that don't become the center of attention, because you know that, you was blessed to have those Timbs on, and what
yeah,
I mean? Like, or whatever.
yeah.
Like, you blessed to have feet. You blessed to have shoes. You blessed to have, so it's like you're not even worried about nobody stepping on your feet at that point. And you just understand that they will.
You got to focus on your blessings. But it's been
Yeah.
really incredible having you on the show, sharing your story. I hope for everyone listening that you got something from Dr. Knight's story. And the real key thing is make sure you go outside, build your emotional intelligence, connect with mentors so you can keep being incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.